What's going on? We're live with how all diets work. The number one way to lose belly fat. If you don't consider these principles, you won't get the results you expect or want. Okay. So the first one is the concept of CECO. Calories in, calories out. Most people probably understand that if they're eating more calories than their body needs to maintain their weight, they won't lose weight. That probably makes enough sense that we don't need to go too in depth on that, but I will suggest there's been research done on every type of diet. Actually, one study looked at 14 different ways to diet: fasting, low carb, high carb, macro counting. And as long as calories were in deficit, they all lost equally amounts of about the same weight. So you sort of have to determine what approach you can stick to long enough. If it is zero carb, keto, that actually works for you for the long haul, not for 2 weeks, then sure, by all means, go for that. I prefer a more balanced approach, and I'll talk about that in a second. The second piece most people overlook, though, is this idea of burning fat versus losing stored fat. Two very different things. And the treadmills are to blame for this because, oh, you're in your fat burning zone when your heart rate's between 60 and 80% or whatever. You burn different fuel sources depending on what you're doing throughout the day. So if you're fasting over the morning, you're probably burning stored fat, stored glycogen. If you're on a low carb diet and you're eating lots of fat, bacon or otherwise, then yes, your body and brain are using fat as an energy source, not carbohydrates. But it doesn't matter. You won't lose fat instantly if you're in a calorie surplus over the course of the day. So that's the difference. To lose body fat, you have to be in a calorie deficit over the long term, not for a day or two, but weeks on end, right? So don't get caught up in low carb, high carb. Think, how many calories am I consuming today? And if I'm consuming too much, then I'm stuck. Okay. And that's why I'm not getting the results I want. So you can get a calorie calculator. It's in the links in the description to punch in your numbers. Because ultimately, what we've discovered, and this is going to be misspelled probably, is the best thing to do is track your calories. Because what even those GLP-1s have proven recently, the Ozempics of the world, is they lose fat even though they're not necessarily told to cut carbs. They just consume less food overall, and that's ultimately the secret. So the best way to lose weight, at least that I've found, and do it consistently, is to track calories. One review, I think there was 15 studies done. Those who self-monitored their food intake through a tracking app or through old school pen and paper lost more weight than the group that was told to just go low carb. Same thing. We just don't, we eat a lot more than we realize if we don't manage it. What gets measured gets managed. It's just like a financial budget, right? If you don't look at how much you're spending, you're likely spending too much. And nutrition is no different, especially in a world that's set up to easily overconsume foods. Highly nutritious, not so much, but highly voluminous in calories is kind of par for the course. So it's super, super easy to eat too much. So when you track, you can fit in some fun within limits and get better results. So I would suggest, if you've never done it before, consistently use my calculator, track your calories for at least 2 weeks. You'll soon realize that you're consuming more than you realized, and you'll know now what to do to lose weight. Okay. So that's how all diets work. Now, there's some nuances to this when it comes to protein intake. Certainly plays a role in terms of how much fat versus muscle you lose. You certainly want to prioritize fat loss and minimize muscle loss. But at the end of the day, if you can get your calories right and you can get consistent with your intake, you're going to get better results than trying to follow a fad that you can't see yourself sticking to for more than a week or two. Any questions? Drop them below in the chat. We will see you next time. Hopefully this is helpful and not too confusing.